Krishna. Okay, we're back. We're going to continue what we did yesterday. I'm still setting up. I'm going to continue our talk on Brahmins. We're reading a lecture, reading and discussing a lecture given by Srila Prabhupada about Brahminical society. And Prabhupada tells us that without Brahmins, we don't have human society. I don't think anybody knows that. What to speak of even knowing actually what a Brahmin is. But without Brahmins, and where there are Brahmins, there will be cow protection, and that is necessary for human society as well, that cows are protected. So, Prabhupada has taught us how to be human beings. I think we all thought we were human beings, that we didn't have to be taught, and I think if you told someone they're not a human being, they would be offended. But anyway, at least according to the Vedic paradigm, they're not really human. At least by higher standards of definition. So, we can't really change that fact. But in a sense, it's not their fault because they weren't educated as humans, and it's our duty to educate them, right? So, therefore Prabhupada said that his desire was to establish or create Brahmins. Prabhupada wanted to create Brahmins, and therefore without Brahmins there's no human society. So you could say Prabhupada was creating human civilization out of Western civilization. You might know that Gandhi was asked what he thinks about Western civilization, and Gandhi said, yeah, that's a good idea. So Prabhupada is not the only one who understands that there wasn't human civilization. Okay. Due to some strange reason, my computer is just upgrading this and that. I don't even think I'm going to be able to open that document. It doesn't seem like it wants to open Word. It seems like it's reconfiguring Microsoft Office for some reason. I don't know how long that's going to take. And I see I've got some Skype messages. I hear some beeping. And Skype is also loading. And I'm afraid if I go to Skype here... Last time I tried to do that and I lost the broadcast. Of course we haven't really started, but... I was just speaking to one of my godbrothers, Virabahu Prabhu, who's been initiating spiritual master for like 33 years, and he has some disciples. He said it were his first disciples 33 years ago, and they're still not second initiated. And I said, why? And he said, because they're not really Brahmins. It's not their nature. So why? He said, you don't have to initiate them. They're not really Brahmins. Interesting, right? Isn't it? But you could use that as an excuse. Say, well, I don't have to become second initiated. But it's an interesting question because you could look at it two ways and say, if I don't take second initiation, does that mean I don't have to develop the qualities of a Brahmin? And the answer would be no. We all are meant to develop qualities of a Brahmin. I mean, look at what the qualities are. They're sense control, their cleanliness, their honesty, knowledge, and so forth. So, but rabbinical initiation means that one is inclined, is by not just characteristic, like we should all be clean, as I'm saying, and sense controlled and so forth, but one is inclined to be a teacher, to be a pujari, to be a priest that way, and be a teacher, to be one who's spreading Krishna consciousness, and then they're given second initiation. But it's not absolutely necessary. But we should never think that the Brahminical qualities are not necessary. Our Vaishnava culture is a Brahminical culture, and we're beyond Brahmins, because Brahmins may not be devotees. But culturally, the Brahminical culture and Vaishnava culture is very similar. So, even though I may not be second initiated or even plan to be second initiated, and even though, let's say, I work at a job which would be considered the job of a Shudra, one should not think that I don't need to strive for Brahminical qualities. Because what we had discussed yesterday was Brahminical qualities are qualities which exist within the modes, within the mode of goodness. So even if by Varna, my activities are considered not to be in goodness, let's say I'm a musician, that's considered Shudra. So that's okay. I can work that way, but by culture I'm Brahminical. When I come home, I study, I chant, my home is clean, I'm vegetarian and so forth. So my occupation may be considered by Varna Shudra. But when Prabhupada said, I'm creating Brahmins, Prabhupada meant, people who have knowledge, people who can help others, people who can teach, and of course dress the deities and so forth. So we are now able to get back to I'm not able to get back. Okay, I want to continue reading. Well, actually, hold on. It's been meeting since the last hour and a half. Somehow I managed to eat breakfast also. So I'm a little spaced out. Unprepared. Not unprepared, not on time. Okay. So I'd like to continue reading and explaining what Prabhupada is saying in his lecture here. So, you may remember the story of Sudama Brahman. He was a poor Brahmin, dirty clothes, holy clothes, and he came and he saw Krishna, and Krishna put him on a throne and bathed his feet. So Prabhupada's talking about that here. So then Rukmini thought, oh, let me take the chamar and worship him because my husband's worshipping him. But externally, he didn't look so worshipable. You can see me okay? It's not blurry and dark and whatever. Do I look beautiful? Or I'm in the dark? Guru Nishta, we have this problem that I don't know how to read the messages that are more than like 6 words. They go to the second line and then I can't access the second line. At least not on my phone. So your question regarding sense control for second initiation would also include, and then I can't read the rest. I don't know how to access it unless somebody can enlighten me. I touch it. I have a chance to be the deer Gambhir. Yeah, you don't need second initiation. You have the holy name. Carmen, Haribo. You don't need second initiation. It's not required. Everything is in the holy name, but second initiation is there for those who are qualified. Now in this Gan you have to pass Bhakti Shastri. You have to be a devotee at least a year, I think, or 1 year from your first initiation. And you should, basically you should show Brahminical qualification, Like you have a deity in your home, but you don't really do any puja, worship. If you were a Brahmin, you'd be spending at least, 20 minutes, half hour a day, bathing, dressing, chanting mantra, because that would be your nature. So if that's not your desire to get a shalagram shila and do puja and so forth, then you don't really need to be Brahminically initiated. So it should be, some inclination should be there, some sign should be there. But philosophically, technically speaking, even we're not officially initiated as Brahmins, as I was saying, we're all basically Brahminical in our lifestyle. So in that sense, we're all Brahmins. But specifically those who are more inclined to Brahminical activity, of puja, of teaching, ritual, they can be second initiated. And that second initiation will help them. But the holy name is sufficient. Completely sufficient. So anyway, so Rukmini, she saw that Krishna is worshipping this very poor Brahmin. And so she also started worshipping because Krishna worships the Brahmins. So certainly we should worship the Brahmins. And Krishna worships the Brahmins and cows. Those are what we said, Brahmins and cows are necessary to be honored. In any civilized human society, they'll be honored. Okay. And then Prabhupada says, they look poor, but they're not poor. They're the richest because why? They have Krishna's shelter. Right? It's like when you think of poverty, if you think of poverty in terms of money, that's one kind of poverty, but there's other kinds of poverty, like poverty of knowledge, poverty of happiness, poverty of compassion, poverty of tolerance, poverty of sense control. And what to speak if you are in contact with Krishna, or even in Brahman, which is so much greater than anything material. So then, because a Brahmin knows what is Brahman, what is spirit, and he cultivates spirit, therefore Prabhupada is saying here, he never thinks of himself as poverty-stricken. Even in terms of money, he may not have much. Just like in the Gita, Krishna describes someone who's self-realized as having gained the greatest, or he thinks he's gained the greatest thing. So that would be a description of wealth, right? If I think I've gained the greatest thing, then I would be considered wealthy. Right? So the Brahmins never think that they're poor. Anyway, Krishna washed his feet. He also did the same when Narada came to his palace. And he put him on a seat and so forth. So Krishna, some people say, Krishna danced with other men's wives, and how can he be God? Or even if he is God, what kind of example is that for God, to dance with other men's wives? That's like, that's a bad example. Then I'll want to do that, and I'll say, well, God does that, so I can do it. So Krishna in Vrindavan is establishing a higher principle in rasa, and he's doing everything to increase love. But when Krishna's outside of Vrindavan, especially in Dwarka, he's teaching Dharma. So here, he's setting the example by worshipping the Brahmins. Of course, Krishna, when he was in Vrindavan, it's not that he didn't teach Dharma, but he focused on rasa, and sometimes in rasa it may appear externally to be not dharmic, like dancing with other men's wives. In the dead of night, it wouldn't be considered dharmic. Unless you could prove they actually weren't other men's wives, they just looked like it, which was actually true because those wives were still at home, sleeping next to their husbands, but they went to Krishna in a spiritual body. But unless you understand that, you'll just see it externally, that Krishna's dancing with other men's wives. But here in Dwarka, he's living as king, and king means to establish Dharma, and therefore he has to be an example of Dharma himself. So here, Krishna's worshipping the Brahmins, and we know Krishna worships the cow, so Krishna does what he teaches us to do. So then Prabhupada says, now, what happens is the Brahmins are worshipped, so then the sons of Brahmins who weren't qualified, they thought, well, this is good. We're being worshipped, so let's be Brahmins and take advantage of all the worship and the gifts and the charity and so forth. So that's the Kali Yuga Brahmin. And so Prabhupada says, therefore, the culture has failed. I think I was saying yesterday, like you may be a teacher, for example, which is a Brahminical profession, but you may have academic qualification, you may have the skills of a teacher, but Varnashram looks most importantly at as the qualities of a teacher, not in terms of your teaching skills, but as being exemplary, because your example teaches more than anything. So Brahmins now, these Brahmins Prabhupada is referring to, they don't have the Samodama, Tapo, Socham, they don't have those qualities. So, but it's good business, and I will tell you, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the guru business is good business if you want to make it a business, and you've got a good branding. You can do quite well if you know how to speak and influence people, dress properly, have the right profile and so on. So there are actually people in India who, instead of becoming doctors, lawyers, or programmers or accountants, or bankers or whatever, they become gurus because the guru business has more upward mobility. Because the more disciples you get, the more facility you get in terms of properties, money, honor, and so forth, and servants. So some people actually become gurus for that facility. And then they take advantage of it to exploit women, to become wealthy, and so on. And I don't know if I told you, but recently I went to Bhubaneswar, maybe 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, and I was told that the police had cracked down on one or two of the biggest gurus in Orissa, and found one of the gurus with his sex scandal, and one of them was actually doing human sacrifice, believe it or not. So then he told me that when the police cracked down, so many gurus fled Orissa, which means you don't have to flee if you're not doing anything wrong, which means so many bogus gurus. They're doing it as a business. I could ride a rickshaw, but how much money can I make? If I know how to speak and dress, and I can do a little branding and advertising and marketing, I could do quite well. So Prabhupada's saying that's what happened in Kali Yuga. You can't take worship You can't take honor unless you represent something higher than you, and it's not for you. So as long as it's not for you, you can take it. Just like devotees, we're humble, so we don't like to be honored. It makes us feel awkward. But did we understand if someone honors us, they're honoring our spiritual master, they're honoring our movement, they're honoring Krishna. So we accept it that way. We accept it very humbly. And we also accept that if you're honoring me, you're honoring Prabhupada, because I am only who I am because of Prabhupada. So if Prabhupada gives me $100,000 and you say, oh, Mahatma, you're very rich, you have $100,000, that I know where it came from. I didn't earn it. It was given to me. So it's something like that. So although we don't like to take honor, but you would see as a Brahmin in society, Brahmins are respected, so that's part of their service is to be honored. And as I've said many times, it's beneficial for people if they honor superiors, if they honor spiritual persons. So it's beneficial for people to honor Brahmins. And sometimes people may want to honor you, and you'll be embarrassed. Hopefully you'll be embarrassed, and hopefully you'll be reluctant. But you can also think they're not honoring you, they're honoring you as a representative of Prabhupada, of Krishna, of Mahaprabhu, of your spiritual master, like that. And then you take it in that humble way. Which is the opposite of what Prabhupada's saying here, because he's saying they're taking the honor not because they deserve it, but because they want it. They're taking the money not because they deserve it or can use it in Krishna service or in the service of others upliftment, but they want it for sense gratification. So yeah, and in that case, you don't accept. So everything's topsy-turvy now. So the moral of the story is the guru business is still profitable. You may want to think about investing. Maybe it's almost like a political party. You can invest in a guru. But maybe you think he'll make it big? I'll get 20% back on my investment. So yeah, you think that's funny, but yeah, basically that's what it is. So Prabhupada's talking about these Brahmins are not Brahmins. They're not prepared samo dhammo tiksha, which means to be mentally controlled, to control the senses, to be tolerant, etc. But he wants the respect of a Brahmin. This is the cause of India's culture being a failure at the present moment. So when the Brahminical class fails, the whole thing falls apart, because that's what's holding it together. When the brain goes crazy, you may not be able to control your body. So that's what Prabhupada always said, Brahmins are the brain. And so when the brain fails, everything fails. So then, Prabhupada quotes, and he's quoted this statement before, first deserve, then desire. So, I desire to be a Brahmin, that's good. Now, deserve it by qualification, become qualified. Then it's okay to desire. But to desire without qualification, that is cheating, basically. It's not fair. So, Prabhupada quotes a verse from the 7th canto, 11th chapter. Yasya hi yad lakshanam proktam varna bivyanjakam yatrapi vinirdeshta tattenaiva vinirdeshat. In translation, well, he doesn't translate it, but he paraphrases it. Lakshanam. The word lakshanam means symptoms. So, what's the lakshanam? Qualities or symptoms of a Brahmin. Now, Prabhupada makes an important point. He's talking to us now. And why is he talking to us? Because Prabhupada initiated us as Brahmins. So now we're talking about Brahmins in general. And when we talk about Brahmins in general, we always think about those Brahmins in Kali Yuga that are out there posing as Brahmins who wear the two-paisa thread, who don't follow Brahminical culture, are not clean, knowledgeable, or sense-controlled, but they're born in the families of Brahmins. And so when Prabhupada talks about fallen Brahmins, bogus Brahmins, impure Brahmins, then we make that general assumption that there are many in India who are born in Brahminical families but don't uphold the standards. But now Prabhupada's addressing us. My request to you, European and American boys, is you have been initiated as Brahmins, but you practice the Lakshana. And he said Lakshana means symptom. Otherwise, if you think, puffed up, that now I've got this sacred thread, my business is finished, I can do whatever I like. No, that is not Lakshana. Lakshana means symptoms. That you must observe, Lakshanam. Yasya hi yad Lakshanam proktam. That nobody can check you. You will be very dear to Krishna. Namo Brahmana Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Ja. So, if I become a Brahmin, then I become proud that I am the best among men, I am better than you, but then there's no symptoms. Then what does Prabhupada say here? Hare Krishna, Prem Krishna. What does Prabhupada say? He's saying, now that I've become a Brahmin, nobody can check me, which means nobody can stop me from doing whatever I want to do. And Prabhupada said, no. You must observe the Lakshanam, the qualities, characteristics of a Brahmin. You must observe those characteristics. Then you're a Brahmin. You can't say by title, I'm Brahmin, and then do whatever I want. So the point is, as you advance in Krishna consciousness, people are going to expect that you exhibit Brahminical qualities. In fact, I once had this realization long ago in San Diego. It's a very interesting realization. Kishore, after the word nothing to, I can't read the next line, so you have to rewrite the rest of the question, the rest of the statement. Oh, it's coming. Yeah. Okay. So in San Diego, maybe 350 people were coming to the Sunday feast. Many people for the first time, many people you could call congregation, or maybe not congregation, but regulars, and then congregation and devotees. And the devotees who live in the temple live quite a pure life. Every day Mangal Arati. If you live in the temple, that's what you do. Every day Mangal Arati. Ideally, you stay in the temple, chant your rounds, you go to class and like that, and you do service all day. So living a very Brahminical life, even if you're not initiated as a Brahmin, and a very pure life. Anyabhilashito shunyam, as the Prabhupada quoted yesterday. That a Brahmin is pure. His purity ultimately means the purity of desire, the purity of motivation. Like why do you do anything? Because I do it out of a desire to please Guru and Krishna, and also out of a desire to help other people. So I was realizing that people who come to our temples, maybe it's conscious, maybe it's subconscious, but there's an appreciation that there are people who are practicing purely. Right? There are people who are practicing purely Krishna consciousness. And we as congregation, or people in general, we need to be around those people because they build faith that Krishna consciousness works. Their association inspires us and purifies us. So could you imagine you have a temple, but there's no Brahmins. Nobody's actually following all the regular principles or chanting 16 rounds. There's no qualified Brahmins to worship the deities. No qualified Brahmins to give class. I mean, what would it be? So people are coming to associate with these qualified Brahmins. So as And then the biggest problem you have is when you have someone who's posing to be a sadhu or a Brahmin, but they don't live like one. It shakes people's faith. So the other realization I had later on in Krishna consciousness, after several of our leaders who had become initiating gurus had difficulty, that to be a leader primarily, not only, but primarily means to be a good example to others, because that's the main thing everybody needs, is example. And it just destroys faith when a leader doesn't follow example. And then what it also does is it makes people think, if the leader couldn't follow, how do you expect me to follow? So you can see, like, society needs a class of people who are pure that everyone could look up to for inspiration, for knowledge, for example. Like, I can think, well, how would the Brahmin act in this situation? What would he do? So that's, as devotees, that's what we're offering people, an example of something pure. And I remember when I first became a devotee, when I was becoming a devotee, I was very attracted to the devotees because of the purity. And my thought was, I don't think anywhere on the planet I'm going to find another community this pure. So if people are attracted to purity, it's very, I mean, there may be other pure communities, but if there are, they're very few. And so what we offer the world is a community of people who are pure, who are purely following pure practices and pure principles. And people want that. Not only do they want it, they need it to uplift themselves. So people come to our temple, like they come once a week or whatever, and they come into this very pure atmosphere of pure devotees. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada says, that like, everything you do, and the potency for everything in Krishna consciousness is that it's done by pure devotees. Like kirtan, anybody who has a nice voice, who has an inclination for music, who likes mantra, could do kirtan. But not everybody can really purify the audience by their kirtan, because it takes personal purity. Even if the mantra is pure, it still takes your own purity. Of course, the purity of the other people in the audience chanting will also have an effect. But ideally, the person who's leading, their purity is very important, and their purity is felt, or their impurity is felt. So I was saying in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada said that in dramas are meant to convey emotion, transcendental emotion. So he said it could only be done by pure devotees. All the dramas, all the actors must be pure devotees. And Prabhupada felt the same way about art and writing. And Prabhupada didn't evaluate the art based on its material standards or expertise. What am I trying to say? Its material level of perfection. He based it on the bhav, the emotion, the feeling of the artist, which he could sense by looking at the painting. And same thing with writing. The purity of the writing is the purity of the writer. So that was another realization I had, that people are really attracted to purity because it's so rare, and it's something we all need. And Brahman means pure. So therefore, those of us who are practicing Krishna consciousness sincerely, and those of us who want to be initiated or who already are initiated, then we are meant to set examples of purity in our behavior, in our dealings, in all our actions. And that's what society needs. So, okay, now welcome Anuradha. Anuradha is, her name means she follows Radha. Radha comes from the name Aradhana, and Aradhana means worship. And Radha means one who's the best worshipper of Krishna. And aparad comes aparadha. Aparad means offense, but aparad means what takes you away from the worship of Radha? Except when you make a fence, it hurts your devotional service, and then it takes you away from Radha. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So now, to read your question, there is a bunch of light in front of me. So I'm going to move the camera and get another view of the office. What I'm understanding is that being a Brahman or Brahminical has nothing to do, and then I didn't get the rest of the sentence. Is it simply for deity worship? Yes and no. Nothing to do with second initiation. It's a formality for deity worship. Yes and no. Well, that's one of the reasons you can't worship the deity. But chanting Gayatri Mantra is purifying. And when you get Gayatri, it means now you can't chant it if you're not in the mode of goodness. So Brahman means you're living in the mode of goodness. But actually, if you want to know the history of it, Brahman is part of Varnashram, and Vaishnavas are transcendental. So we actually don't need to be initiated as Brahmins. Although, when you get Brahminical initiation, you get Gayatri Mantra, but you get other mantras, which are necessary to have to worship the deities. And there are meditations on the Guru, and Lord Chaitanya, and Krishna's position as Gopinath, the Lord of the Gopis. So, at the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he wanted to make the point that to be a Vaishnava is better than Brahmin. It's above the Brahmins, but caste-conscious India. So, because it was caste-conscious, people thought Vaishnavas were lower than Brahmins. They didn't understand they were higher. And previous to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, or maybe Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but I think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, the Vaishnavas did not take Brahminical initiation because it was just considered material, or part of Varnashram, wasn't necessary. Anyway, he thought it was necessary because he wanted to show that we are also Brahmins, Vaishnavas are also Brahmins, but ultimately beyond Brahmins, but at least so people would understand we're Brahmins. So the thread was given. Otherwise, at initiation, you would be given the other mantras. So that Gayatri mantra was the mantra given for Brahminical initiation. And all Brahmin boys were given that Gayatri mantra. And then when they were given the Gayatri mantra, they could begin their studies and they begin their deity worship. So what you're saying is partially true. You couldn't study the Vedas without being initiated as Brahmin. So I believe Kshatriyas also got that Brahminical initiation in Gurukul to study. Interesting, huh? But Prabhupada describes this in his books. And so it's kind of, both things are true, that it's helpful and it's not necessary. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada said the holy name is sufficient, but Brahminical initiation helps. So generally, we would encourage that for those who are Brahminically inclined to take Brahminical initiation. It enables you to do deity worship. And I think it would be good for all of you at some point, or all of those who are Brahminical. And we all should be Brahminical. And the interesting thing about being Brahminical is it's basically, in one sense, you could joke and say being Brahminical is being everything that's not American. Because Americans are not Brahminical, and Brahminical culture, what we're learning, well, they're not very Brahminical. They may have some Brahminical qualities here and there, but in general, American culture, you wouldn't call it Brahminical. People they don't know the standard of cleanliness. Sense control is generally done in order to achieve something that you want. So It's kind of an oxymoron that you control your senses to get what you want. Because getting what you want is sense gratification, right? So I'm controlling my senses to get sense gratification, is basically. So, that's American culture. I'm doing austerity, why? Because I want to get rich and build a big house. So yes, they're doing austerity. So again, another oxymoron. I'm controlling my mind. Why? Because I feel better when I control my mind, or I can achieve more when I control my mind. So I'm controlling my mind, or I'm trying to become peaceful in my mind. Why? Because I feel better when I'm peaceful. So American culture it's, you could say becoming a Brahmin will purify you of your American samskaras, of your surfer dude samskaras. Yeah, American culture is surfer dude culture, right? You know that culture well, right? It has nothing to do with Brahminical culture. Actually, it's so interesting. If you think about it. If you look at Krishna consciousness, it's all about pleasing Krishna. But when you're in the stage of Vaidhi Bhakti, pleasing Krishna is about forcing yourself to do it. I don't really want to do it. I want to get up. I don't want to chant. I don't want to go to Mangalarti. I don't feel like reading now. I don't feel like this or that. And you force yourself to do it. And when you love, there's no force. Just do it, right? So we're trying to be selfless. That's what we're trying to do because we know it's the right thing. Anyabhilashitam shunyam. Make your desire zero just for Krishna. That's what we're trying to do. So we're learning that, and then eventually we'll love Krishna, and it's natural. But material life is all about, what do I like? Right? I feel like doing this. Now what does the feel like doing this means? It means it feels good. It's all about feeling. I want to fly a hand, what do they call those? Those, is it a hand? Not a hand glider. You can fly those, maybe it's called a hand glider, I don't know. You can fly in an airplane, glide on the wind. You could do all kinds of amazing things. Climb Mount Everest and whatever, surf a 100-foot wave and whatever. Right? So, from the material perspective, it's glorified, so-and-so, risked his life to ride an 80-foot wave in such and such place, there were 10 boats out there just in case he fell off and got thrown inside, didn't save him, it's like a big thing, so we look at that and we think, this man is brave, this man is, prepared his whole life to do this. He's special. He's strong. He's intelligent and so on. Yeah, okay, that may be true. But why is he doing it? Just because it's like the feeling of riding down an 80-foot wave. I mean, there's nothing in the world you can do that compares to that. It's that feeling. So he's doing it for the feeling. I saw this little documentary once on the history of the Hells Angels. So now, instead of hearing Bhagavatam, you're going to hear about the Hells Angels. Well, it's something instructive. And it said, I think the Hells Angels was started after World War I. And it didn't look like it looks now. The people weren't like heavy characters. But what they said is that it was started by Air Force pilots. He said that what they did was so exciting, flying those planes in the war, that after doing that, like nothing in life was exciting. I think someone said that about riding a wave like that. Once you ride like an 80-foot wave or something, it's like 80 foot. When I was young, it was 30 feet. Now I think somebody did 80, just incredible. It's like once you do that, it's like everything else is boring. So the Hells Angels started as a byproduct of these airline pilots after, to do something exciting, get on a motorcycle, ride 100 miles an hour, that's kind of exciting. Go beat up somebody, that's exciting, I guess. So, so Timothy, when Timothy was Timothy, he was a surfer dude. And surfer dude Timothy would go out surfing to find the best waves, right? And if he was out there, he wasn't praying that everybody else get the best waves. He wasn't saying, "Oh Krishna, please produce the ultimate waves for all these other surfers. I just want them to get the best waves." He was paddling around looking for the best waves, sometimes getting in front of somebody who could have gotten in front of him to get the best wave, sometimes yelling at them if they get in front of him to get off my wave. And in this way, fully absorbed in meditating on enjoying the waves. Prem Kishore, is that accurate? He has a comment there. Yeah. Oh my God, it says my battery's low. Below 20%. All right. We may take a remedial measure here. We have to. There's hope for the battery. We're going to save. I've come prepared. So my point is, okay, I'm going to give you a little surfer kata here, because I think understanding the mind of a surfer can help us understand what is culture. The whole point is we're saying that American culture is very different than Brahminical culture. So this was just one example, that you go out and you wake up in the morning, you look at the surf report, you look at the wind, and then you get your board on your car, and you're meditating on one thing, enjoying the surf. That's what you're meditating. You go to the beach and you're looking, is this the right beach? Do they have good waves? And you go, no, the swell is coming from this direction, so this beach isn't going to be good. So we'll drive like 30 miles south to the other beach where the swell, where that beach gets this swell that's coming from the north, because it's the winter now, and then this beach on the north swell is really good waves. And if we get there early before everybody wakes up, do that tapasya, that austerity, we can get more waves to ourselves. So you're completely fixed, meditating on this feeling you get from riding these waves, and you want that feeling, you hanker after that feeling. It's a personal feeling. Or like, and then when you finish surfing, you basically stay out in the water till you're so tired you can't paddle out anymore. You're just like, you're exhausted. Or the wind starts blowing and the surf gets bad, or it gets crowded, or you just get hungry. But as long as you can stay out there, and then you get out of the water, and then what do? Then you look at all the pretty girls and think, I'd like to enjoy those girls. Or before you think of that, usually you're starving. It makes you get so hungry surfing. So then you get in your car, you're freezing, you want to get warm, and then you go somewhere and eat like a pig, basically, because you're starving, and just scarf it down. Then you meditate on the women, or you might meditate on at this simultaneously. The point is, you're always meditating on what you want for yourself. So Brahminical culture, it's Dhamma, it's sense control. And I've said many times, unless you're sense controlled, unless you stop thinking about yourself, how could you ever think about anybody else? Because you're like, I don't have time to think about anybody else, because I'm thinking about myself all the time. So when Prabhupada's saying, I want to create a culture of people who think about others, that's Brahman. Now, if you take Brahman initiation, it's also initiation into a kind of a culture. Well, how does a Brahmin live? Well, Prabhupada said, if you drink water, after you drink water, you should wash your hands. That's Brahman. You should not wash your dirty dishes in the same sink that you clean Krishna's pots. You should not use the same rags to clean, or sponges or whatever you use to clean your plates, and use those for cleaning Krishna's plate or Krishna's pots. You should not keep what you eat, what you throw out, what you've chewed, the peels, the remnants of your food in the kitchen. You should have a trash can outside the kitchen. That's Brahminical culture. So whether you're initiated or not, that's how you should live. One time, Prabhupada had finished his meal, and his servant took the orange peels and then threw them in the trash, and the trash was in the kitchen, and Prabhupada saw that, said, "You're throwing my orange peels in the kitchen," and you're thinking, well, what's the problem? No, nothing that's touched our mouth, because the mouth is contaminated, should go back inside the kitchen, and all the trash had been the oranges and it touched Prabhupada's mouth. So Prabhupada noted that, and the devotee, it's like he didn't know what to say, and Prabhupada just said, "Mlecha." Mlecha. Mlecha means outside of Vedic culture. So mlecha is like, we could say American. Americans are mlechas. That means just outside. It's a different culture. They don't know. You know, when you've lived in a temple, you've been around devotees, there's certain things. You touch things with your right hand. This is the right hand, although it looks like the left. It's backwards. You touch things with your right hand. You chant with your right hand. You give with your right hand. You receive with your right hand. You reserve your left hand for dirty business. The backside dirty business. That's the left hand. That's culture. That's, we don't, think, I'm left-handed, what's the problem? You don't do it. But there's so many things. This is all Brahminical culture. There's so many things. So it's part of a package. So if you can live that way, become a Brahmin and live like that, be pure, clean, worship the deities, rise early, study, that's good. And so chanting the Gayatri mantras you get, then that helps purify you. But so what you said is also true. And sometimes in temples they need Brahmins to worship the deity, and they'll just initiate people because that's what they need. Okay, so getting back to surfing. Big wave surfers suffer depression the majority of the year because there's no big waves. Yeah, so what are they going to do? Okay, I'll give you another analogy of surfing. Surfing has taught me many things. In the winter it's cold. Right now it's cold here. It's like, in the morning it's like 40 something. High temperature, I think it's only 50, maybe 58 or something. So that's kind of cold. And, if you're a surfer, then you surf all year round. You put on a wetsuit and go out, and it's cold, and it's austere, and it's difficult. And you have to paddle out and get battered by waves, and sometimes you get caught inside and the waves crash on you. And sometimes people run into you, or they look like they're going to run into you, or they scream at you to get out of the way. And so you suffer a bit, or a lot. It's cold, getting pushed down, you fall off your board. Sometimes you surf in areas where there's a lot of rocks and reefs, and you get cut, and on islands there's coral, and people have been known to break ribs. So what is it showing? It's showing that we undergo a lot of austerity to get a little pleasure. The ratio is like, well, how much pleasure do you get and how much austerity do you undergo? Well, I work 40 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week. Well, how many hours of pleasure do you get? Well, I get off the weekends. Okay, so you've got 60 hours of work, 50 hours of work, and you got the weekend, maybe 15 hours. So, and the weekend you wash your car, you do your laundry, clean your room, go shopping. Yeah, so it's not just, you understand the principle. So I saw that in surfing. There's a lot of austerity. One person said there's one spot in Hawaii. The waves are so good. There's so many people out. It's like everywhere there's people. There's just hundreds and hundreds of people. There's not enough waves to go around. So they say that you'll have to go out all day to get one wave. It's like so many waves come in and everybody's caught the waves, and then you're still out there and you can finally get a wave. And nobody's going to get in front of you because you want the wave alone as far as possible. And they say you'll have to go out all day to get one wave, but it's worth it. The feeling is so amazing from riding that wave. Is worth the whole day of just sitting out there and getting burnt by the sun. And if you're from California, Hawaiians are going to yell and scream at you. Yeah, watch out. And if you try to surf Mauritius and you're not Mauritian, I know the person who's going to kick you out of the water, and he's going to tell you, get out or I'll beat you up. I know him. He's a friend of a devotee. So, a little reality behind the scenes. Big wave surfers are depressed. And anyone who has an exciting life, I guess, gets depressed when it's not exciting. Anurana says, is it true that when you're a Brahmin, the reaction of your activities, and I can't read the rest, you have to write it. There's nothing I can do. I cannot figure out how to read the rest of your message. So it looks like you said the reactions of your activities. Is it true that the reactions of your activities, something what, get dissolved? Carmen doesn't understand. What don't you understand about surfing? There's no waves where you go? Prem Kishore, explain to Carmen what she doesn't understand. The finer intricacies of surfing. Now she understands. Yeah. What I was saying is that material life, it's all about how you feel. Everything you do is about feeling, right? I'm just going to feel. Let's do this. What do you want to do today? So you think what you want to do. How will it feel? What level of enjoyment? Would you like to do this? Would you like to do that? I'd like to do this. Why? Because it's more enjoyable. So we're just meditating on ourselves all the time. Brahminical culture is noble. You're meditating on the welfare of the world. Well, that lowest level of consciousness is just meditating on my sense gratification. True that when the reactions of your activities are stronger when you're Brahmin? I'm not sure. Someone told you that? I mean, the good reactions or the bad reactions? So you're more powerful, you're more pure. The more pure you are, the more powerful you are, for sure. Yeah, more than clean your thoughts is you clean your heart. Your activities are stronger. What's stronger? Reactions, your activities? Yeah, if you're more pure, everything's stronger. And yeah, if you commit sin, it's more of a reaction, because the higher responsibility you go, the higher you go, the greater the reaction will be. Yes, well, both. If you're asking either question, that's both true. As you go higher, you'll be more powerful. But if you commit sin, it'll be more sinful. Like Prabhupada said that. You look at America, it is a very prosperous country, but it's very sinful, right? And naturally, the question comes, in America, there's tremendous millions of animals being killed every day. I don't know the latest number on abortion. I don't even want to know. It's so depressing. With that amount of murder, how is it that there's prosperity? And Prabhupada said, Indians, they know the laws of karma, and they suffer more than Americans because Americans don't know. So then naturally you think that by giving people knowledge, once they know, their actions will be greater. And the answer is yes. But if you don't give them knowledge, how will they know what to stop doing and what to start doing? The reactions of your activities are stronger. Good and bad, stronger. Yes. Bad reaction. Yes. Whenever you have knowledge, it's even said that if you have knowledge and you don't act on it, if you're a Brahmin and you're given knowledge and you don't act on it, your knowledge will dry up. You'll lose it. Lose it means it'll no longer be activated in your body. Like, let's say I know I should do austerity, but if I don't teach other people austerity, if I don't help other people become Krishna conscious, then my ability or desire to do austerity, it will just dry up. Isn't that interesting? So that's a reaction. That would be a bad reaction if you're a Brahmin. Than if you're not a Brahmin. Because now it's your duty. So whenever you have duty, there's a reaction if you don't follow it. Because everybody has some duty. But the more you know, the more dangerous it is. So, like the Christians say, something similar. Interesting, I don't know if you're aware of this, but they say, the natural question comes up that not everybody knows about hell. And Christians say, if you don't accept Jesus, you go to hell. And so naturally you say, well, maybe I don't accept him because I don't even know he exists. No one ever told me about it. I lived in a village, and it was a Muslim village, and there were no Christian preachers there. I didn't even know who Christ was. I didn't know he existed. I didn't know he had any teachings. I didn't know there was a religion. So they'll say, no, you won't go to hell for that. You'll go to purgatory. You'll have a chance, another chance, I guess, purgatory. I'm not sure. I'm not Christian. But you won't go to hell. So then naturally you think, well, then don't preach. Because all these people who wouldn't go to hell will now go to hell because now they know they should surrender to Jesus. And if they don't, that's it. It's over. They're going to suffer. So maybe better not to preach. So that idea could be there. Of course, obviously the answer is that no, you have to. But don't preach to those who are not faithful. Then it will be bad for them. Okay. So we can continue reading, if that's okay. Okay. So now Prabhupada, here he gives an interesting definition of Brahman. It is not, if you keep yourself in the platform of a true Brahmin, it is not difficult. We have selected 4 principles: no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, and no gambling. That's all. If you keep to these practices, then you remain. And if you chant, then above Brahman, you become Vaishnava. So then here Prabhupada gives a qualification. Follow the 4 regular principles. Because Brahmins are in Sattva Gun, and if you follow the regular principles, that's Sattva Gun. And so one time Prabhupada said, we give someone initiation, we give them a chance. First initiation is a chance. Let's see if they can follow. Then after a year, 6 months or a year, if they're following 16 rounds, 4 regular principles, they can be initiated, second initiation. So that's the same thing that Prabhupada's saying here. We want to see that now you're steady in following these principles, and if you're steady in following these principles, then you're a Brahmin, because you're in the mode of goodness. That's simple, right? But still, there should be some Brahminical inclination. We can add to that. At least what we've learned over the years, right? Manmana bhava madbhakto majiji mam namaskuru. That's Bhagavad Gita 1865. Qualify yourself as a Brahmana. Qualify yourself as a Vaishnava. Then your position is guaranteed. Kunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. I just put my phone in so all the pictures are loading. We had kirtan last night. Look at the pictures of the kirtan. Anyway, I had amazing kirtan last night. So, okay. Then the verse that we're discussing here, this is 5th canto, 5th chapter, text 23. In this verse it said, if Krishna takes care of you, this is really nice. Krishna takes care of you. The verse says, Na brahmanais tulaye bhutam anya. And I'm going to tell you what that means. We'll go back to the beginning. Actually, I don't know what it means. Prabhupada didn't translate it. But he's kind of giving us a translation here. I lost my place. When Krishna takes care of you, when his attention is on you, then there's no strength of Maya to touch you. Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Maya, that means if you surrender to Krishna, you'll cross over Maya. 7:14. Maya may be there, police may be there. Police is there, so what business have I got with the police? If I am honest. Isn't that a nice example? If I am properly observing the rules and regulations of the government, what business the police have got to touch me? Maya is there. Maya must be there. Maya is there, but it does not mean Maya can touch you if you're actually surrendered to Krishna. So, in other words, the correlation here is if you're on the Brahminical level, that level is pure. So Maya will not touch you. You're in touch with Brahman. Maya is there, but it does not mean Maya can touch you if you're actually surrendered to Krishna. Mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Again, 7:14. Krishna personally will take care, and to come to the Brahman stage, everything is described, everything is prescribed. We can come to the Brahman stage by a simple method we are practicing, and that's to hear Bhagavatam. So, I like this example Prabhupada gives. He said, I remember, this is really funny. We'll get to your question, Carmen, in a minute. When I was young, student, it was like now students drink beer. It was pretty popular, right? Well, in those days, it was pot, marijuana, as you say, marijuana. That was quite common, and it was illegal, and if you were caught, you could be arrested, and who knows what else would happen to you. So, as students, as hippies, we really didn't like the police. We saw the police as the enemy, because they're doing something illegal. So naturally, the police are the enemy, right? But we just didn't like the police. It was just, they represented law and order. And we didn't represent law and order at all. We represent outlaw and chaos. So, then I remember becoming a devotee, and one of the first transformations, changes in the way I saw the police was I realized, well, I'm not doing anything wrong now, so there's no fear of the police. And actually the police are good, because they're there to protect. So my whole view of the police changed. So Prabhupada, he's saying the same thing here. He's saying, if you're Krishna's devotee, then Maya is like the police. And so if you're Krishna's devotee, you're with Krishna, everything's legal, and the police aren't going to bother you. So he's saying, therefore, police are like ignorance, and ignorance can't bother you. Interesting, isn't it? Krishna's the law, you're following the law, and the police can't bother you. So if you surrender to Krishna, so, okay, that sounds good, right? Krishna's light, Maya's dark. Try to bring in darkness, there's the light, it's not possible. Krishna's the law, Maya's like the police will only go after those who are outlaws or criminals. So then, the verse that we quoted says, surrender to Krishna. Whoever surrenders, mamevaye prapadyante, whoever surrenders, they can conquer over Maya. So, what does surrender mean? It means to follow all the practices, just like Carmen is asking, how can I clean my feelings? A lot of it has to do with the practices, like Carmen. Karma free. We'll call you karma free. Or we'll call you Carmen. We're going to open a shop. People fix cars, and the shop will be called Carmen. Right? How's that? You don't like that, right? Okay. I was thinking this morning, I was chanting my rounds, and I was really, I was there. I was in the sweet spot. Ever been in the sweet spot when you chant? I was in the sweet spot. So, I was in the zone, the Nam zone. We want to get in the Nam zone, the zone of the holy name. I was in the holy name zone. And I was thinking, this holy name is dangerous. This holy name is destructive. It'll just completely destroy material life. It's dangerous. It'll just destroy you. And so, in answer to your question, the best answer is that you can't fight Maya directly, but you fight through the process. So if you take shelter of the holy name, and you just get absorbed in hearing and chanting and praying, that's the best way. And because when you get purified, then you won't have that question anymore. Like, how do I cleanse myself? Because the holy name's cleansing it, right? So imagine you just cleaned your house. Now it's clean. So no more questions about how to clean it. So it's not just only that we adapt different attitudes, but it also has to be in conjunction with proper sadhana. And if you do that, magically, mystically, powerfully, the holy name and the other practices start working. Now, I don't know if you know, but many times we've explained, if you study Nectar Devotion or Chaitanya Charitamrita, you understand that there's 64 items of devotional service considered. There may be unlimited items, but 64 are listed there as the main items. And of the 64, 5 that are considered super powerful. And one of them is chanting, and one of them is hearing Bhagavatam. One of them is deity worship. And one of them is living in a holy place, and one of them is associating with devotees. And so these 5 are considered like super powerful. Super, super powerful. Just like if you go to a festival and there's a lot of devotees, you feel very inspired. Even when you come, you're not inspired. But by being with the devotees, you get inspired, right? So Prabhupada says, and Shastra says, these 5 processes, any one of them, it's so powerful, it can make you Krishna conscious. Right? So if we neglect these 5, these are like the 5, like superfoods for the soul. Superfood, like I take moringa. You should all get moringa. It's very inexpensive. Moringa has 90 nutrients in it. Isn't that amazing? 90 nutrients. And it's the drumstick tree. Drumstick tree. Say that 10 times fast. Drumstick tree. Drumstick tree. Drumstick. No, this can't be done. It's not possible. So that's a superfood. It's just super rich in like 6 times more vitamin C than oranges, like that. So these 5 processes are superfoods for your bhakti. And so it's not like you're just going to wake up one day and be Krishna conscious. It would be like saying, I'm going to wake up one day, I'll just have tons of energy without eating my superfoods. So you have to eat your superfoods. Right? Yes? If you eat your superfoods, you won't have any problem. And then, of course, we have to make effort to control our mind, to control our desires and all these things. But if you eat your superfoods, it'll be very easy and natural. Okay? We're almost finished with, well, it's 11 o'clock, but we started late. We're almost finished. So Prabhupada says the same thing. Everything is described, everything is prescribed. You know, like what to do, how to follow. How to follow to become a Brahmin, it's all described. And then Prabhupada says, hear the Bhagavatam. Serve the person who's the Bhagavatam, the Guru. You have to serve the person Bhagavatam and the book Bhagavatam. Serve the Bhagavatam means to hear it. When you hear the Bhagavatam, then you become purified of all these desires. That's what Prabhupada is saying. And your bhakti naturally will increase. Like when you get rid of the dirty things in the heart, the bhakti comes out. It's like this water is dammed in there, and you move the anarthas, and then comes this. The bhakti just comes out. And then Prabhupada is saying, by hearing the Bhagavatam, it gets you out of ignorance and passion, because the Bhagavatam message is pure. It's like you imagine something really dirty, and then you just pour buckets of water and clean it out. Sometimes in India you get these rooms that are so dirty. Basically you have to come in with buckets of water or hoses and just hose everything down. But once you do that, everything's clean. You can feel it feels fresh, pure. So hearing Bhagavatam is like pure water, just cleaning the heart. But then when the heart's clean, there's no more passionate ignorance, and passionate ignorance means lust and greed. That's what accompanies passionate ignorance. And so, then Prabhupada says, kind of concludes, he said the whole point, the whole process is to cleanse the heart. That's what we're doing. And then Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kavanoi, that Krishna Prema, it's in the heart. So we're cleansing the heart, but it's there. It's covered. It's our natural relationship because we're part and parcel, like father and son. Son may be rebellious for some time, but affection's always there between father and the son. Okay, that's that. So any other questions, comments? Argument? You could argue also, it's okay. You have a doubt, you can play the devil's advocate. Whatever. Culture is a whole other topic. It's a very interesting topic, and maybe in the next class next week we'll talk about culture. Because here we're talking about Brahminical culture, but just the concept of culture and how culture affects us. I'll just give you a little seed of what we can talk about next week, and you may have to remind me, because it's just my life is so interesting that I do so many things in a day and meet so many people and go to so many places that I can actually forget, like next week, sit here and forget what are we going to talk about. Even though now it's very clear, so you can make a note. But one of the things I've noticed as a teacher, which is kind of obvious to me and concerns me, and it is a problem, is that what you understand and what you feel, or you could say also what you understand and what your nature is, how you do things naturally, are often very different. And what you understand or the knowledge you get doesn't, in many cases, doesn't affect these habits or nature very much, sometimes not at all. So what affects it most is the culture. Because I go to different countries and I see that in a lot of places you'll have people that in many ways by culture are very nice. They're good. They would make nice devotees. If they became devotees, they have the culture. They respect authorities. The women dress in a chaste way. They understand the importance of values, like that. So if they became devotees, it would really be good. But even if they're not devotees, these people often are culturally ahead of people who are devotees, and because those who become devotees may come from a different culture. So the point is that there are a lot of cultural paradigms that exist within Krishna consciousness, but we may not have them. And it makes it more difficult to be Krishna conscious if you don't have cultural paradigms that parallel or align with Krishna consciousness. And therefore, even if you hear in Bhagavatam class, it should be this way, if your nature is to be a different way. But hearing alone it's not always enough. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. So, culture plays a very big part. You could also say culture is like environment. What's the environment in your home? What's the environment around you? The kind of people you hang out with, that's part of your environment. Like that. Okay? Let's stop now. Thank you for listening. And tomorrow, 2 hours earlier than this, we're going to give a class on Ustream, especially for women, but I think men could come. I don't think the women will kick you out. Maybe they will. We'll find out. But it's about women, the Dharma of women, what it means to be a woman. To know the Dharma of women, you have to know what a woman is. So we're going to talk about that. And what their Dharma is. Haribol, Alaksha. I feel like I'm close to all of you in Mexico because I'm on your continent or close to it. Well, I'm in South America, you're in North America. It's probably closer than India, right? So, but then, it's really weird. I was just coming from India, right? So I went to Mauritius and South Africa, and it's also like India. And then I came here. Well, this is the West. It's Argentina. It's like Europe or America. Then I'm going back to South Africa. So I'm like, and I go back to that Indian culture. Then I go to England. So now I'm getting closer to India again. My life is very confusing. Okay, so nice to see all of you. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.